Hi, I'm Darlene Carman.
And I'm Doug Carman.
Welcome to the show. This is our second show, part 2, about one of the stops that Doug and I made on our road trip through California, Oregon, and Washington. Our visit to the B Bryan Preserve at the Point Arena in California coast was an experience usually found in Africa, except the antelope, zebras, and giraffes were within 5 miles of the beach. The preserve is a private conservation and breeding sanctuary dedicated to the welfare of African hoofed animals. As a means to feed, house, and care for their animals, Dr. Frank Mello and Judy Mello provide tours and cottages for people to enjoy the animals in a natural environment. Recently added to the preserve are Rothschild giraffes. Let's take a look as Dr. Mello talks about the latest additions to the preserve. Enjoy.
So our focus is on the antelope and all of the zebra species and the Rothschild giraffe.
But now you just added, that's fairly recent that you added the Rothschild giraffe, so it's beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, we've been working on permits in their facility for 5 years. Yeah. And we just got in 3 young boys from the San Diego Zoo Safari Park on loan from them. They are youngsters. They're 2, 2.5, and 3 years old. The Rothschild are from Uganda and a small part of Kenya. They're also called the Ugandan giraffe or the Barango giraffe. But their more common name is the Rothschild. And like I say, they used to be very common at one time, but now they're critically endangered and there's only about 650 left.
Wow. And you said you're going to get a couple more. I think you told me
We're getting 2 more, I think, in September. Our plans for the Rothschild are to house a bachelor group here of males, and which is easier said than done, but for the foreseeable future. And we will conduct some research with them. We're talking right now to the University of California at Davis, one of the best vet schools in the world, which is very close to us. And we'd like to do some research on artificial insemination, because in North America, the zoo community has decided to not protect the Rothschild anymore.
Really?
And focus on some of the other subspecies. And we don't agree with that, and we're going to try to do something about it.
Good.
Because European friends of mine think that the Rothschild is extremely important, maybe one of the most important of the species. And we're going to do some work through artificial insemination to ultimately bring in some females and bring the species back here. That's our plan.
Oh, they're so beautiful and
they're
gentle.
Just a stunning species, and like I say, the giraffe species in Africa is dramatically declining in numbers. And can you imagine the world without giraffe?
Can you imagine also having to take care of these animals?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, having to feed twice a day, and then of course having to manage their health and their well-being. That's really got to be an amazing job.
Oh yeah, what a handful. And can you imagine when Frank and Judy want to take a vacation? I can just hear them talking to their friends now. Oh, excuse me, would you like to take care of my 11 zebras and 6 giraffes and 30 antelope?
No, that's got to. But I was really impressed with Dr. Mello's passion for his work.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing that somebody can love his work as much as he does.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that. I think he's going to talk about it.
Destroy your wildlife, it's going to come back to bite you.
Well, what are you doing here at the preserve to safeguard the environment?
What we're doing here is, first of all, we've picked 6 species of animals that we deem to be very important. And they're all African. You can't be everything to everybody. In other words, there's a lot of different animals and things that are in trouble.
I know, I asked for elephants.
Right.
Well.
No, that's somebody else can do that. But we focused on 3 rare species of antelope, the only 2 species of zebra, and giraffe.
Your giraffe.
And our mission here is, what we do here is we give them a lot of space. We have a lot of them in a herd environment that you would see on the plains of Africa. We actively breed them, and we sell them to zoos and other preserves. But our mission is to ensure that these species are around in 100 years, because they're going to be gone everywhere. We have had countries in Africa come to us wanting the species that we have.
Wow.
I'll give you one example. Roan Antelope in South Africa. There used to be 50,000 Roan Antelope in South Africa. A beautiful, iconic species. Today, there's only 350 left. My wife and I went to South Africa 3 years ago to see roan and sable, which are two antelope that we have, to see them in the wild. We had to come home to see them.
Oh, no.
Serious. They're gone.
Oh, my.
And they're going to come to us wanting animals someday. You watch. We've already.
Now that's a switch.
Well, there's interest in sending roan back to Swaziland, but the problem is if there's a reason why they've disappeared, we're not going to subject them to that environment. They're going to stay here.
Right.
You know,
No poaching.
it's like the Giraffes zebra that we have. The Giraffes zebra are more rare than the black rhino.
Now, are those being eaten too? Is there a case?
They're in an area of Kenya and Somalia, Ethiopia, where it's not even fun to be a human there. And iconic species for that part of the world, I think it's also called the royal zebra. It's probably the most beautiful zebra.
Yeah.
Most people don't know about it because it's gone. There's about 1,800 left. There's only about 750 left in the wild. And we have almost 1% of the world's population here.
Wow.
And you've got rebels, they call them rebels, but it's basically tribal warfare going on over there in that part of Africa. And a Kalashnikov, you know what a Kalashnikov is?
No.
It's an AK-47. It's a repeating rifle that they use. I've seen pictures of them shooting a whole herd of Giraffes.
Oh.
And you got to understand, these guys are not Boy Scouts over there getting their merit badges. They're fighting each other. They don't have anything to do. They see a herd of Giraffes, just mow them down and go on. And between that and climate change, you've had a major drought there for a long time. The animals are just disappearing. You know, the problem in Africa is some countries are very unstable, some are. But there's countries like Zimbabwe, you don't even want to go over there.
Right.
And the wildlife is just about destroyed. So it's going to get more and more difficult to see animals in the wild there.
Yeah.
And very expensive.
Yeah.
And if you can do it here in North America,
don't have to worry about poaching. We're not going to use their horns.
We have several places that we work with, the San Diego Zoo, Global.
Yeah.
Very important to us in working with them. We have our dear friends over in Santa Rosa, Safari West, who has a large collection, all African.
One thing, if you do go to the preserves, there is the rental cottages, if you can't have a chance to stay there. They're beautiful. They're really works of art. They have Lloyd Wright windows and many antiques that are in the rental cottages. So they're beautiful, and I think it's an experience that everybody would really enjoy. Let's take a look at, as Dr. Mello talks a little bit about the cabins.
Hopefully we'll in the future, these animals will be preserved.
You have a lot of building methods that you're using to recycle and solar panels. Tell us a little bit about that.
It all gets back to conservation. Animals are part of it. But we have cottages here that probably, I would say, at least 30 to 40% of them is all reclaimed materials. We use old doors, old windows, old floors, old original Art Deco lights.
And they're beautiful, some of the chapels.
You know, it brings back the past, but it's our giraffe house, for example. is just about being completed. The outside of it is all reclaimed red cedar out of Montana.
Beautiful, the markings on it, yeah.
The inside is all old growth redwood. The windows are all attributed to Frank Lloyd Wright. It'll have a 1924 Otis elevator in it. And it'll all be powered by the sun.
Great.
We have two systems here. We're getting Sun Power Corporation is nice to donate to us a 10K photovoltaic system. And we also have hydronic systems that are from Heliodyne out of Oakland. And the elimination of fossil fuels is very important to us. And this is going to ultimately be a conservation center where you can not only come and see rare and endangered animals, but you can see facilities that are sustainable from the sun.
Judy and Dr. Frank Mello's home is a beautiful Victorian, I'd say around early 1900s mansion, and it's filled with, the gardens are plants from South Africa. It's just really something to see. Let's see a little bit of it, okay?
Oh, this is his house, and it was beautiful. I was quite impressed with the inside. It was very, very large, and you can see by the outside that it is virtually a mansion and a yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You're a plant person, and you were more impressed with the plants that he had in his yard.
I love the plants, and I had to ask myself which ones here are from South Africa and which ones are on the coast here, because they do live on the coast. And so, how compatible they are in this climate? Apparently, quite compatible. I didn't recognize a whole lot, but they're just beautiful. I saw so many species that I didn't recognize, so I figured they have to be from South Africa. I have a lot of South African plants too, but they're all succulents, so I don't know about other varieties. That would be something to investigate.
There's a carriage house that has been converted into their garage. It's inside of the house, and so you can, that garage is the size of a normal house, so it gives you an idea to compare how beautiful their home is on their property. They really do have a nice property, and now we get the gardens.
I think it's a work in progress.
This is where they had more of the South African plants.
Yeah, you wait until about 10 years from now. I mean, this is still new, and I think it's really going to be something when they continue and expand on this. So it's really, really nice. The grass is there. It looks like some bamboo in the back and somebody's pottery. That's a mystery there on the pottery that they showed.
This is where most people that come to the preserve, this is where they're greeted right up front by all the plants, and then I think in a bit right back here, you'll see an old barn that they're working on now. They're going to convert it into a visitor center. They've started, but they've got a lot of work to do. And then right on the left, they're restoring an old a vehicle out of a safari to take more people around on their tour.
Another work of art.
Yeah. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, he's got a lot of work to do. I give him credit.
Yeah.
The Oakland Zoo is one of many zoos and organizations collaborating to safeguard our wildlife against poaching. We are pleased to welcome back Amy Phelps, a 13-year zookeeper and research associate for the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. Hey, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back.
Now, on our previous show, we just touched on Giraffe Day that's coming up. For the people that didn't see the show, let's just recap that. So on June 21st, 2014 of next year, we have the world first Giraffe Day.
We do. It's
what's going to happen?
Very first World Giraffe Day, sponsored and put together by the Giraffe Conservation Foundation. and it's going to be celebrated all over the world. So zoos and research organizations all over the United States, Canada, Europe, Asia, Africa, everywhere. And what we're hoping is that it'll really be a day for people to both celebrate giraffe and also get some real education and awareness and some media coverage of the conservation issues that the species is facing, and really get people to pay attention to what's going on.
Well, why was this so important that we had to have a Giraffe Day?
Because unfortunately they are a species who has quickly dropping numbers, but they're not necessarily at the top of the conservation priority scale where we really want them to be. And so the more awareness that we can get, the more likely we are to really get them the coverage and the help that we need to really protect them and keep funding the research that needs to happen to find out what's really going on.
It's so beautiful. Do we have that logo? Can we show the Giraffe Day logo?
Yeah, we showed this thing
Let's show it again.
on the first show, and I think it's important to show this again so everybody's aware
Very
that when
nice.
they can come to the zoo and the giraffes are going to be put on
See
display.
real
Yeah.
giraffes.
Real giraffes with real
in
spots.
person.
Oh, that's really nice.
Well, you know, when we were planning to do this show, we did some research, you know, looking for giraffes on the internet, and I was quite surprised. Couldn't find that much information.
Yeah.
And I got kind of concerned because, you know, I always loved giraffes. I think all kids and grown-ups love giraffes, and there wasn't that much. There was a lot about the other animals, but not that much information. Why is that?
Well, unfortunately, I think a lot of what we have historically known about giraffe is based on the work of a really amazing woman named Ann Dagg, and in the giraffe world, we call her the Grand Dame of Giraffe. When Ann was a girl of about 21 years old, she graduated college in Canada, and she took herself to Africa to study giraffe in 1954, at the beginning of the apartheid, completely by herself. So as a woman, she's definitely a heroine in terms of a gutsy, strong woman who got out in the world and did what she wanted to do. But there were not a lot of people and resources to help her because she was a woman in 1954. And so she wasn't even allowed to do a lot of the things that she needed to do to really collect large volumes of research, and it wasn't always safe to travel alone. And so there was sort of a big gap in time. She put together all her research, and then she published with some colleagues in the early 70s on her findings, but her findings were based on limited observations. And so until probably about 10 years ago, what Ann Dagg published is all we knew, really, about giraffe.
Is that book still circulating?
It is. It's out of print, but you can find a copy for about $150 on Amazon. As a giraffe enthusiast myself and somebody who I'm very fortunate to call Ann both a friend and mentor in my life, and she's still involved in all the giraffe circles now. So now we have all this new research, and she's actually has a new giraffe book that's going to be coming out that includes all the current information. But most of the new research that we know has come out in the last 10 years, and I think one of the greatest examples is that when Ann first looked at giraffe, she thought that it looked like they had very loosely associated herds, that they didn't really care too much about one another, that they sort of floated from group to group, and they didn't really have any strong social bonds with one another. And while males that are big breeding males do travel alone in search of females to breed, the females and their offspring actually, now we know from the current research that's being done by the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, what we know is that what we think is they really have tighter social bonds. And so it's quite likely that in every subspecies, but certainly in several of them now, we've proven that females will spend most of their lives together with their offspring. So mothers and sisters raise their babies together. They raise each other's babies. They nurse each other's babies. They babysit each other's calves. They protect each other's calves from predators. If a predator grabs that calf and that calf passes, all of those females will mourn that body and stay with that body. So in terms of social intelligence, what we know now is that they're much more like species like elephants than we once thought. And so, you know, they're really not the sort of goofy, just sort of loosely hanging out animals that everybody thought they were, that there's a lot more to them than we knew.
They can cry just like any other animal.
Absolutely.
Do you think that the current efforts now will help bring giraffes to the forefront in the people's consciousness, to be aware? I think they've just taken it for granted. There must be millions of giraffes.
That's
but
exactly
there
right,
isn't.
yeah.
That's scary when you realize.
When you go to
how few
certain,
there is.
the most popular parks in, say, Kenya, if you go to the Masai Mara on a game drive, you're going to see a fair number of Masai giraffe because there's a group that's protected in that park that stays there. And the same can be
Because of
said
the
for
tourist
certain
trade.
areas, right? And most giraffes really in Africa do exist now in fenced areas. The Rothschild giraffe is a great example. They're mostly concentrated in Kenya, and there's a tiny population in Uganda. The population in Uganda is not in any kind of a fenced or protected area, so they probably won't be around much longer. But every single wild Rothschild giraffe that exists in Africa, in Kenya, is in a fenced preserve, so they can't get out of that area that they're in. It's a very large space, but that's how we can protect them from poachers, protect them from crossing highways, things of that nature. So there's definitely some changes going on in the population.
Yeah, one of the things I'm doing in research I found on the internet was that, yes, you know, with a little bit of information about giraffes, but there was a lot of stuff that, you can buy giraffe skins and
Bracelets.
bracelets. Yeah, and I was kind of like, wow. Yeah, here we were focusing on how we're going to save these animals, and I thought maybe it was banned, but they're right out there on their internet.
You can
buy
find
all
anything
kinds
on
of
the
skins.
internet, even though it's not legal to buy it in the United States or to bring it back into the United States anyway when you travel. But yeah, giraffe tail hair bracelets are a popular tourist item, so anybody who goes to Africa will find them in the tourist shops, but it's really something that we'd have to ask people to please not buy, because it is not uncommon for a poacher to illegally slaughter a giraffe. And then they will sell the skins for tourist items. They'll cut their tail off and make bracelets. And it's also becoming a more popular animal in the bushmeat trade. So
yes.
there are small pockets in Africa where there are starving people that are killing a giraffe because they need to feed their families. And that is a separate problem from poaching for tourist attractions. Yeah, it's a separate issue.
Well, you just have so much experience. It's just amazing. So with all your experience on a personal level, what have you learned about giraffes that's really changed you, moved you?
I have loved giraffes my entire life. When I was a little girl, my parents were friends with a giraffe keeper at the San Francisco Zoo. So when other kids got to go to the petting zoo, I got to go to the giraffe barn. And in that sense, I always have felt like I sort of grew up around giraffes. They are to me what horses and dogs are to a normal kid. And I always knew that I wanted them to be some part of my career and some part of my life, but I never, as a child or as a new zookeeper, I never had any idea what I would learn as I got older and I worked with them longer. And I think it's hard to sum it up, you know, it's sort of what you do every day, and it sort of consumes your entire life. But I think that I've definitely learned that they're far more intelligent and there's far more to them than I ever thought. And I think that they are extremely sentient, intelligent, feeling beings, and we don't always give them as much credit as they're due. But I've also learned, probably the two biggest things I've learned from working with them are patience and compassion. Because if you don't have both of those, you're not going to be a successful zookeeper. And you know, you see that in how they interact with one another. You see that in how they interact with their world. They are incredibly patient creatures, and it is a lesson that I have to learn every single day because I am not a naturally patient person. But they really are, and they're naturally very gentle and kind. And if you treat them well as their zookeeper, they will treat you well in return. If you treat them with respect and love, they will treat you that way back.
You know, the one question I had is, we've been to various zoos and we've seen elephants take baths and you know, soak themselves down to clean themselves off in mud baths, etc. You see, but I've never seen a giraffe. taking a bath or watering. How do they keep themselves, their coats
They hate water.
clean?
They hate water. They hate water and they hate the rain. They have a oil that's naturally produced in their skin that acts to sort of keep them clean, but it also keeps bugs off of them. Yeah. So we don't need to bathe them. They can lick themselves if there's something on them, just like a dog cleans itself.
No, they didn't like water.
No, I didn't.
They can't swim, so they don't.
You know,
like
when they
deep
reach
water.
down to get that drink of water and you have that on your logo there.
Their legs and,
They do.
It's
So
really
funny.
tough
They
for them.
do. Well, in the wild, water is where predators are.
It's been a
It's
while
where crocodiles and lions gather.
It's been a while since we've been to the zoo. We're just about out of time, but do they have any new quarters, or is there any plans in the works that we should know about?
We just got a brand new barn, so they have a nice big heated barn that they're enjoying this winter. And we're always making improvements, so it'll definitely be a constant flow of improvements for them.
Yeah.
It's never good enough.
Do they require a large area like
Well, they're big.
Dr. Mello? They have quite a large area, and we actually got to see him run. We didn't get any footage. We couldn't get our cameras ready. He was yelling.
You can see them run at the Oakland
Zoo.
Zoo.
Took off running.
They do run, and they run in our exhibit as well. They have several acres, so they run. And they do require a lot of space because they're large and they 2,000 to 4,000 pounds apiece. So.
We're out of time, but you know what? When you have nothing to do and you're not busy, I would propose that you would write a book from your perspective about giraffes. I would like to be the first one to read it and have you back on the show. I would love to hear what you have to say about giraffes. Wouldn't you like to hear that?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't
We like
forget
to
me.
see, the progress, because it's really just started.
Yeah, hopefully
it's,
she'll be back and she'll write this great book on giraffes that we all would like to read. And
Yes,
so
we
she'll be back
encourage
for that, right?
I'll work on it. I'll
There's
see what I
nothing
can
like
do.
putting her on the spot. Thanks for doing the show.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
for watching the show. I hope you got a feeling now a little bit more about what giraffes are all
How
about.
important they are.
So watch the show again. Thank you. Are you a writer?